Théodore Géricault, a pioneering French Romantic painter, stands as a revolutionary force in the realm of art. Known for his dramatic compositions, intense emotions, and commitment to realism, Géricault left an indelible mark on the 19th century art scene. Born in Rouen, France, on September 26, 1791, Géricault displayed an early affinity for art. He received his formal education at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, studying under Pierre Narcisse-Guérin. Géricault's early works already demonstrated a departure from neoclassical conventions, hinting at his inclination towards a more emotionally charged and individualistic style. Géricault's dedication to realism was evident in his meticulous attention to detail. In pursuit of accuracy, he conducted anatomical studies, even dissecting cadavers to capture the authentic physical expressions of pain and agony. This commitment to realism set him apart as a groundbreaking artist who sought to convey the raw realities of the human condition. The story begins with the ill-fated voyage of the Medusa, sent by King Louis XVIII to reclaim the Senegalese colony. The ship, plagued by incompetence and nepotism in its crew and leadership, struck a sandbank off the West African coast. The decision to evacuate the passengers and crew to lifeboats and a makeshift raft would lead to one of the most notorious maritime disasters in French history. The lifeboat's design was flawed, and the overcrowded makeshift raft, hastily assembled from spare parts, lacked navigation equipment. With little food and water, the 147 survivors faced dire circumstances. Infighting, starvation, and dehydration consumed the raft, leading to a desperate struggle for survival. The situation worsened as the lifeboat abandoned the raft, leaving its occupants to face the merciless expanse of the Atlantic. After 13 days at sea, only 15 survivors were rescued. The survivors' accounts of cannibalism and chaos shocked France and prompted public outcry. Géricault, captivated by the sensational and tragic narrative, embarked on the ambitious project of immortalizing the Medusa's plight through art. The makeshift raft is shown as barely seaworthy as it rides the deep waves, while the men are rendered as broken and in utter despair. One old man holds the corpse of his son at his knees, another tears his hair out in frustration and defeat. A number of bodies litter the foreground, waiting to be swept away by the surrounding waves. The men in the middle have just viewed a rescue ship, one points it out to another, and an African crew member, Jean-Charles, stands on an empty barrel and frantically waves his handkerchief to draw the ship's attention. In the composition, the sails and the survivors on the raft seamlessly form a triangular pyramid composition, becoming the focal point of the painting and vividly presenting the scene of the raft drifting at sea to the audience's understanding. Some individuals have already succumbed to death, others are barely holding on to life, and some are lost in contemplation as they cradle the lifeless bodies of their loved ones. Meanwhile, a group of uplifted individuals surges forward, breaking free from the constraints of the stable large triangle and creating a tumultuous, passionately charged triangle. They push one another, reaching a climax where the person at the highest point is hoisted high, waving a red cloth. Following their shouts, keen observers might discern a faint silhouette of a ship on the distant wave crest. In stark contrast to the imminent death looming in the foreground, it signifies a glimmer of hope for life. The artist intentionally depicts a sail in the background, symbolizing the survivors' yearning for the lifeboat. Yet, the headwind gradually propels the raft backward, creating a tense atmosphere of opposition between the yearning for rescue and the reality of the raft being pushed backward by the headwind. Géricault's palette is composed of pallid flesh tones, and the murky colors of the survivors' clothes, the sea and the clouds. Overall, the painting is dark and relies largely on the use of somber, mostly brown pigments, a palette that Géricault believed was effective in suggesting tragedy and pain. The work's lighting has been described as Caravaggesque, after the Italian artist closely associated with tenebrism, which uses violent contrast between light and dark. Even Géricault's treatment of the sea is muted, being rendered in dark greens rather than the deep blues that could have afforded contrast with the tones of the raft and its figures. In its insistence on portraying an unpleasant truth, the Raft of the Medusa was a landmark in the emerging Romantic movement in French painting, and laid the foundations of an aesthetic revolution against the prevailing neoclassical style.